I actually do feel like people have like higher expectations for us than a Jada and a Will, because with Jada and Will, people kind of like assume the worst, whereas for us, they assume the best.
The struggle for her to like advocate for herself in the relationship, and then like there was like a switch that happened where she started like advocating for everything, and I was like, whoa, 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 like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, turn it down.
It brings refuge, and we ran and hide by light of the moon.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Achille, and this is
John Wilson. Let's get it.
We actually wanted to get into a video regarding Jada and Will Smith's whole fiasco affair. And I wanted to have John on to kind of like be able to talk about it as a couple, and then maybe like chime in and see if he has any other particular perspectives. So how did you feel about like people kind of like blowing everything out of proportion and stuff?
Well, first, it seems like we're at the brown table talks. You ain't got like no young dudes in the background you gotta warn me about, do you? Nah, I'm playing.
Not today.
Right. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
So my question is, how do you feel about the like kind of people getting all up in their business and stuff? And what was your perspective on it when you first found out?
I mean, you know, I think we all knew it was something more to her and August's relationship, like 3 years ago when we saw him on a Red Table Talk. So, you know, we all have our inferences and everything, but for me it was just like it was what it was.
What about the last interview gave it off to you?
The Red Table Talk?
Yeah, like the Red Table Talk.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just the talk, but I think, you know, people started posting pictures of them and everything, and so, you know, different pictures that August Alsina and Jada Pinkett Smith had. And so, yeah, I mean, it definitely looked like they were cuddly in the pictures, but at the same time, so even though I was looking, you know, I think we all can get caught up in the whole hoopla, right? So it's like, even though I was looking, I definitely didn't have any public thoughts, you know, because it ain't my business, really, right?
Right.
But so yeah, I think it was just like a lot of the different context that was surrounding.
Yeah, I think like in the beginning it was kind of like all speculation. Like I know that during that time when the Red Table Talks came out, like they talked about having a special relationship with each other, which was kind of like odd to us. But I think because of the age gap, we were kind of trying to be like, all right, you know what, it's not what you think it is. But then also, obviously, we thought that Will Smith and Jada have been having this like
perfect
relationship this whole time. So it's like, how could this be? But then there's the other spin of like, you know, folks thinking that they've been in an open relationship all along. So it's just kind of like, what is it all about or whatever.
Right. I see a lot of people, you know, run into August's defense, and so I guess first I'll say I don't think any of them are at fault. Okay. I don't think Will Smith is at fault. People have been trying to clown him like he's a simp or a lame or a sucker. I don't think he's at fault. I don't think Jada's at fault. Like, I don't think she took advantage or manipulated August Alsina. And I don't think August Alsina is at fault. I think that they're adults. I think they had adult conversations. And I think that, you know, whatever was happening with that situation, it ended up resolving itself. Do I think August should have publicly discussed it? I mean, I think that's up for a debate. I don't know why it had to become a public thing, but also I think it has opened up a lot of conversation around just relationships in general.
Right. So obviously there was like the first initial reveal of like what was going on with August's interview on Angela Yee's, like, I forgot what's her thing called.
Lip Service or?
Lip Service, yeah. So she had a interview with him on Lip Service, and that's where he kind of disclosed that he was in fact in a relationship with Corinne, with Jada Pinkett Smith, and in that I feel like he said, insinuated something along the lines of like, oh, you know, he gave me permission. And then now, obviously, watching like the because we recently just watched like the Red Table Talk. How do you think that Will Smith did in response to it? Like, kind of how he carried himself in the interview.
I mean, I think he was very composed. I think both of them were. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like both of them like kind of spoke about it because they felt like they had to, not because they necessarily wanted to, not because they felt like it was relevant, but because, you know, after August kind of dropped this bomb, you know, obviously when you don't, I do think it is something to like controlling your narrative, right? And clearly that situation is mostly Jada's narrative. I mean, obviously Will is a part of that, August is a part of it, but mostly it's Jada's narrative. So, you know, I felt, because I know some people have been like, oh, well, they should have just kept it in house and stuff like that. And I agree, but once the cat is out of the bag and everybody's kind of, you know, everybody has an opinion these days, especially with the internet. And once everybody was kind of saying different things, I think that, you know, Jada and Will in particular had to kind of respond to kind of, yeah, get ahead of the narrative and control the narrative.
So while I was like following everything on Twitter, I was kind of like, I seen a tweet about this one girl saying like, I've literally been Jada, August, and Will at certain points.
I'm sure we all have been all three of those people at a certain point in our love life. Yeah. Yeah,
and I think for me, like that's kind of why it wasn't such a big deal. Like I felt like it was a normal situation to go through, especially considering how Will and Jada has like kind of responded to everything. I already understood that they had processed it within their relationship, so it was just kind of like, why is it that we have such an issue with it, and we're like, why are they still in this relationship? You know?
It was almost like people wanted to find something wrong. It was like, oh, did you see how Will blinked his eye during the interview? Did you see how Jada like scratched her cheek? They're unhappy still. And it was like, come on, y'all, like, stop.
Yeah, and I think there's it's like partially to play into like our fixation with like celebrity culture and us thinking that, all right, well, you know, since they're so rich, like there has to be something wrong with their life, you know, so that I don't like idolize them so much. I'm like kind of depressed about my own life, so they start to project other things, you know. But I think one thing that was important about Jada's thing is that she was reflecting on herself. She was taking accountability for the things that she had done personally, and she was essentially saying that like that relationship helped her heal through the situation and made her realize that it wasn't getting out of the relationship with Will that needed to happen. It was her kind of like finding happiness within herself and healing within her like internally, that is what needed to happen and stuff. And I kind of like resonated with that a little bit too. And I mean, yeah, I guess like to kind of bring it to connect it to our personal lives and stuff. Do you feel
y'all about to get the nitty gritty?
Do you want to touch on like, you know, how it kind of connects to like our lives personally, or like even our relationship?
What you talking about? You talking about the time you was dating this young whippersnapper? Push me to the curb? No, I mean, I think. All right now, yeah, but nah, I mean, I think that I think in terms of us, I mean, well, not even just us. I think most relationships, right? I mean, because I think like we are, you know, we look at Will and Jada's relationship historically, right? They've been married almost my whole life, 25 years, right? Most of your life, 25 years, right? Right? So it's like we look at them as like this model relationship. Nothing can go wrong. So when we see a chink in the armor, we kind of fixate on it. And I think like sometimes, you know, I think people may look at me and your relationship not as perfect as Will and Jada's clearly, but something similar, right? Like, so yeah, no, I mean, I think the reality of a relationship is gonna be, you know, rocky. There's going to be, you know, I think relationships go through phases. I think, you know, it goes through the initial courtship, the initial infatuation, the honeymoon phase of like this person can do no wrong, right? I leave the seat up, right? I don't cook all the time, right? It's no big deal. And then like once that honeymoon phase is over, right? It's like, bro,
that becomes an issue.
Yeah, everything becomes an issue. It's like, bro, I just asked you to do this and you didn't do it.
Yeah.
So and you know, me and Achelle have had to work through that of, you know, first like living together, and the struggles with that, and with that, you know, kind of wanting or needing your own space and stuff like that, and trying to work through those tensions. Each relationship we're in is a learning, you know, something to learn from. So, you know, I think what I learned was like to be communicative and be open and honest about how I'm feeling. If I feel wrong about something, off about something, if I disagree, being open about that. And it's fine if we disagree. If it's fine if we're not on the same page about it. That's cool. But as long as we know where each other are.
Right. And I think for us, like, I actually do feel like people have like higher expectations for us than a Jada and a Will, because with Jada and Will, people kind of like assume the worst, whereas for us, they assume the best. And I feel like because we are both, quote, model citizens within our like friend circles and within our families, people always assume that like we are in a perfect scenario, a perfect situation. And it's not to bash our relationship. I think we do have actually like a very unique, great relationship. And we both have a lot of emotional maturity to be able to discuss certain things. I mean, yes, that's obviously to play into like some of the past relationships that we've had and mistakes that we've made in the past, so that we can now like kind of have the best parts of ourselves, like of each other, and give the best parts of ourselves to each other. But yeah, that doesn't take away from the fact that we are normal people and that certain things do happen, and that when we go through transitions, such as, for example, like when we moved in together, that we're still kind of getting to know each other in that way, you know, like that's like a new arena that you have to then navigate as well. Like I know for us at least, like I think the first summer that we moved in together, it was kind of like interesting because it was still exciting. Like we moved in like spring or whatever like that, but I think at the time, like, you know, you were transitioning into your off season since he's a teacher, so like he has a summer off, and then I was working like full time, and I was like always working, and I'd come home and you'd have all this energy, and I'm just like I want to just, you know, have my peace of mind. And I think like we also were living in a way smaller space. We were living in a studio apartment, so like, yo, like, yeah, actual space is also key as well, because that's kind of like how you're able to really carve out like certain boundaries within each other, of like saying like, all right, well, I need some space to do this. Like for example, like me and my YouTube stuff, like you know, that was kind of an issue for a little bit, but it was kind of just like
I was video bombing.
And I was just kind of like, well, not even just that, because like I'm still learning to like be comfortable with like being on video in general with myself. So it's like to have another person in the house that hears me, I'm just kind of like, please leave. So I think that was like probably the most difficult part for me during quarantine. But I think overall, yeah, like we've gotten a chance to be able to like have a really great communication with each other and address things with each other. And I think that also because we both look at each other as like equals helps as well. For us, we try to maintain like a very anti-sexist like relationship overall. And I think that that's kind of like key to our communication as well.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Like I think, you know, we both try to root our, you know, relationship in anti-sexism, which, you know, obviously, you know, it doesn't mean that that's a easy, breezy process. I consider myself an anti-sexist, but I'm sure I still have moments of sexism, right? I've grown up in a society of it. So, but I think for me, it's about trying to hold myself accountable to it. Like I do know, like one of the big struggles we had early on in our relationship was like she would defer to me for everything. Like, oh, what do you want to do? Well, what do you want to do? So okay, I guess, right? So, but that was my way of trying to like not be the macho man and like dictate every single thing we did. That was my way of trying to like free that up. And so then, and she was very resistant to that, like very resistant, like, no, like you're the man, you decide, kind of almost. And I was like, okay. So, you know, to an extent I fed into it, but then I started to kind of try to struggle with her about it. Like, well, it shouldn't always be about what I want to do. Like, I know you got things you want to do too. And then she would say, oh, well, you may not want to do it. Yeah, I might not want to do it. But if you want to do it, if it's important to you, then struggle with me to see it as important to go to it. You know what I'm saying? Or to at least be supportive. It don't mean that I might not be pouting or not or nothing like that. But you know, yeah, it can't be you always just coming to stuff I think is cool. You have to do it. And so it was very interesting because then, like, you know, I kind of really struggled for her to like advocate for herself in the relationship. And then like there was like a switch that happened where she started like advocating for everything. And I was like, whoa, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, turn it down, right? But by that time you can't turn it down. It is what it is. So I had to adjust to that. Like, okay, like now she's like self-advocating for every single move we make, and okay, I gotta adjust to it. So I'm sure we had like some clashes during that period, but like, you know, I think we both were self-reflective of when each other was wrong and stuff like that, and we worked through it.
Yeah. You said, oh, dial it back now.
Yeah. But you can't dial it back once it's rolling. So
yeah, but I think, you know, that's the beauty of like continuing to struggle with each other about like sexism within our household and stuff like that. Of like, I mean, just because you are intentionally trying to be anti-sexist, that doesn't mean that you don't also make mistakes at times too. You know, you like in terms of like your upbringing, you've also kind of been raised by like having certain roles. Like take for example like being very protective or whatever like that. Like I think that's kind of like what we've dealt with more so. Like I think you do a lot of things out of my protection, where I'm kind of just like, let me live, you know. And it's like I think for me, because this was like the first relationship where I really kind of like, well, not the first relationship, because like I think like my past relationship had kind of also challenged me to like be a little bit more like vocal and like emotional or whatever the case is. But like, yeah, like this is the first relationship where I've actually been able to kind of like, you know, be really, really transparent with my emotions and know that like that person has my back in a certain way, and that like we're reciprocating like our energies, you know. And I think because this was also the first time of like me feeling like I can just be myself without like being like so like worried about what the other person thinks or how the other person feels. I think that's why I like push back so much, because I'm just like it then reminds me of like what I deal with in society, you know. And then because like you've allowed me this freedom to be able to do it with like to.
Well, I didn't allow you this freedom.
Well, you have.
It's like when Jada was like permission. Like, yeah, I wouldn't say I allowed you any freedom.
Well,
I advocated. I think, you know, if anything, I probably advocated for you to take it by the horns. Right.
You advocated, and you gave me space to do so. Like, I mean, even with the situation with Will and Jada, it's like it's not necessarily permission, but it was kind of like a green light, you know, because obviously they have a very like personal relationship or like familiar relationship, because we're like, regardless if they're together or not, they still have to consider themselves family because they have children together. So it's just like, yeah, like with that, it's just like it still has to be kind of like an agreement, like an unspoken agreement that's made of like, all right, like, are you okay with this, so that we can continue to move forward like amicably, you know. And I think for us, like that was kind of what it was too. It's just like I know that I know you don't really believe in like unconditional love, but I know that you have, like, I know that that's within those conditions that you like are going to continue to love me through. Like you're going to continue to love me through struggle. You're going to continue to allow me to speak my mind and not necessarily just say like, all right, like I'm out, you know. Like I think you allowed that, so that's why I've been able to like feel comfortable enough to talk my stuff, whatever, you know.
How low, wherever you say I will go.